Hello and welcome to Pock and Rob. Today's video is continuing my series ranking each track from the post-Beatle solo output of Paul McCartney. Last month I covered Off the Ground, which means for part 18 I have reached the 1997 album often cited as a return to form. It's Flaming Pie. Coming off the back of the anthology project with the Beatles, Paul was in the mood to record the way the Beatles did, and the resultant album is regularly cited as one of his very best albums. I just remind you to like the video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell to receive notifications of future content, and let's go in and rank the 14 tracks of Flaming Pie. At number 14, I have placed Really Love You, credited to McCartney-Starkey. This was certainly the first time that that particular credit had been used on a record, a co-write between Paul and Ringo. It has Jeff Lynne on it as well, who is the producer of much of this album, and we'll talk a little bit about Jeff Lynne's production for this album as we go through. If this didn't have the McCartney-Starkey credit, my personal view is that this would never have seen the light of day as anything other than, at best, a B-side, and not a good B-side either. It's interminable at 5 minutes and 18 seconds and fills every one of those 318 seconds. It's one of the worst tracks that Paul put out, in my personal opinion. Really Love You at number 14. At number 13 is another jam track. And this time it's a co-write between Steve Miller and Paul McCartney. It is Used to Be Bad. Now, I'm not a great fan of Steve Miller. I quite like Abracadabra, The Joker's a decent song, but Used to Be Bad's awful. I mean, it's in its original released format on CD, it was absolutely terrible, and only worse was Really Love You. But on this vinyl, which is a half-speed master from the reissue for the McCartney Archive campaign, it sounds and feels a lot better. I can live without it. It's 4 minutes or so long. It's boring, which is one of the problems sometimes with a jam track, is that it's just blues chords. But on the reissue, it's got merit. On the vinyl in particular, on the CD reissue, it doesn't make much of a difference, but on the vinyl, it really does sound so much better. But again, really doesn't need to be on the album. At number 12, I've placed If You Wanna. So I don't exactly hate it, but I can certainly leave it more than I will take it. Again, prime B-side material rather than third track on the record. Like I say, I don't hate it. I can leave it, but I won't skip it. I mean, If You Wanna's, it's just boring, but it's okay. So far, my ranking of these 14 tracks has not gone well. We're about to take a massive leap up in the quality, and the next track that I've placed at number 11 is The World Tonight. This was one of the 3 singles released, the second single in the UK, the first single in the US. Personally, I think The World Tonight probably should have opened the record. We'll come to what does open the record very shortly. His vocals seem a little bit strained on it, but it's a good song. It's well constructed. It's toe-tappingly good. I'm not damning it with faint praise when I say that I think it's mid-range McCartney. And in a career that has spanned 26 albums, there's going to be plenty of mid-range McCartney. And mid-range McCartney is still better than most other artists. The World Tonight at number 11. And at number 10, the song that I alluded to that does open the record, which is the song we were singing. Again, I again say this is mid-range McCartney for me. The verses and the word cramming that seems to take place to try and then the rhythmic shifts and everything that tried to make it work feel forced to me. There's a good guitar part that I really quite enjoy. The chorus is absolutely fantastic, but the whole song feels just that teeny bit disjointed for me. Song we were singing at number 10. At number 9, I have placed the penultimate track of the record, and that's Beautiful Night. Back in the day, when this album first came out in 97, this was my favourite of the album. I really liked it. It was originally written in 1986, recorded in 87 with Phil Ramone. Few minor lyrical changes that took place between 86 and 97. Ringo's drumming on it. It's George Martin orchestrated, produced by Jeff Lynne. And Beautiful Night has the feel of a track that I feel like I should like more than I do. I don't know why. And it maybe harkens back to, because it's a 1980s written song, it still has the feel of a 1980s, like 87 style to it. And that wasn't Paul's greatest period. Beautiful Night was the third single. And generally speaking, I don't like an extended coda on a song. I find the Halo Helloa stuff on the end of Hello Goodbye irritates me. But on Beautiful Night, I like this one. And that's mainly down to the really barnstorming orchestration from George Martin. Beautiful Night, I've placed at number 9. At number 8, and from here on in, we're talking approaching top level McCartney, for Flaming Pie. Now, when I listened to this through in my one album per day listen through back in the lockdown of 2020, I had a bit of a go about Flaming Pie and what I wrote about it in a blog post on the Take It Away group. Since then, I've got this excellent half-speed mastered vinyl from the archive edition, and Flaming Pie as a song really shines on that vinyl. It's come back to life for me. The great boogie woogie piano in the middle, which is a bit I've always liked, even when I was ragging on the song a bit. And I find it fun. There is a certain amount of, is he trying too hard because of all the Beatles connection and John's thing about you should be Beatles with an A, said a man on a flaming pie. But, you know what, give him a break. He was a Beatle, he can do what he bloody well likes, quite frankly. And Flaming Pie, 2 minutes 30, it does not overstay its welcome, unlike some of the other tracks I've mentioned so far. Flaming Pie at number 8. At number 7, I have placed the UK lead-off single, Young Boy. Now, I played Young Boy to death when I bought the single. And as a result, I think familiarity bred contempt. So that within a few years of the album coming out, I think I was pretty sick of hearing Young Boy. But Young Boy is a great pop single. If I have a problem still with Young Boy, it's the fact that this sounds like it was produced by Jeff Lynne. If you don't know what I mean, then go back and listen to something like Cloud 9 or Brainwashed by George Harrison. Jeff Lynne has a very signature style, and Young Boy sounds like it was produced by him. But here's the thing, it wasn't. This was solely produced by Paul. So it's ironic that the most Jeff Lynne sounding production on this record is a track that Jeff Lynne didn't produce. And we will talk about, as I say, more on Jeff Lynne's production as we go through. It's a good song. I enjoy it a lot. Young Boy. At number 6, I have placed a song that at one point was my favourite off the album. Now, remember I said Beautiful Night when I first heard it was the one that really stood out. The one that actually lived with me for the longest was actually Some Days. Paul's voice sounds vulnerable and perhaps a little bit thin, and we are entering old Paul voice territory very much so on this album. And some days it feels a bit exposed, but it works for the song. There's undoubtedly a certain level of melancholy in this song, and I can only imagine that Some Days was composed around about the time of the diagnosis that Linda had of breast cancer. And knowing that she was diagnosed, and at the time they thought she'd overcome it, it just puts another layer of pathos over this song. Some Days is really beautiful. Some Days is a really fine song at number 6. And number 5 is a song that at one point I think it's buried on the second half of the album. And like I said, 53 minutes is a long old listen. It's taken me years to learn to like this track, but like many other of the harder edged sounding, almost rock tracks that McCartney's done. It takes me a while to really learn to like these ones, and Souvenir is one of those. Now, Souvenir is a slow and laid back one. It's not a full-on in-your-face rocker. It closes side 3 of the double album version, and I've grown to really, really like Souvenir, and it's my number 5. At number 4, and for this point here, I think we're now into A1 McCartney territory. Some of the best stuff that I think he's ever recorded and written. And at number 4, I have placed Great Day, the album closer. So this is a 1971 song, apparently. They had been playing this around the kitchen table for years, and finally in 1992, he did a cassette recording of it. It is one of only 3 contributions to my knowledge of Linda on this record. And in fact, this, as far as McCartney's records are concerned, is Linda's final contribution to his recorded output. And not knowing that at the time, that within a year she was going to be gone, meant that this song felt throwaway back in 97. After 98, it's just grown in gravitas. And actually, we're talking 1971, we're talking Ram. And this is an absolutely brilliant little track. Whilst it's clearly, in my opinion, not the best thing on the album, it would have been the best thing on Wildlife. And it would have had a tilt at being the best thing on Red Rose Speedway had it been pulled out then. It would have potentially been in contention to be on Ram. It's a great song, Great Day. Really simple, the kind of thing that only McCartney can pull off with such aplomb. It's a lovely album closer and a beautiful farewell to Linda. Great Day at number 4. And number 3 is a song that was written for someone who had died, and that was Maureen Starkey, and I placed Little Willow. Now, I've seen reviews and articles, not least the uncut guide to McCartney, giving it a 1-star song. What garbage. Little Willow is a beautiful tune. It's a fantastic tribute to his late friend, Maureen, who was Ringo Starr's first wife. And it's achingly beautiful. Fitting, beautiful tribute to Mo. Number 3, Little Willow. Number 2, I have placed probably the most admired song from Flaming Pie by most people, and it's Calico Skies. This is a great track. And this is the song that puts the lie to the fact that this album was Paul getting back to how he used to write songs after the Beatle anthology, because it was in his head. Calico Skies was written and recorded in 1992. This was before Off the Ground, and Calico Skies would have been the best thing on Off the Ground. Why shelve these things? I don't know why he does it, but in some ways it does mean that we know there's so much in the vaults to come. He's such a genius that there's treasure in them there vaults that we will hear one day. One of his very, very best acoustic, intricate songs. It's one of the few that he's still playing live. It's really grown on me through the years, and it's my number 2. And at number 1, that leaves only the side 2 opener on the original vinyl, side 3 on here, halfway through the CD where it would have got lost, Heaven on a Sunday. So another one that's really grown on me over the last 20 years. And if you've never bought the vinyl version, whether it be the original, that's one slab of vinyl with 53 minutes crammed onto it, or this superior half-speed master, please do so, because it makes these middle of the album tracks and latter end really stand out so much better. I'll come to why in a minute. But there's a lovely vibe on Heaven on a Sunday. Second half of the verses melody is absolutely fantastic. You can, yes, the lyric about Devon on a Monday is a little bit hokey. I could imagine this on an improved version of London Town. It's a highlight that becomes much brighter with age. His son plays on it when he was just the age of 20, and James's guitar is good. And I will go so far as to say, without completely foreshadowing 2 months' time and Driving Rain, this is comfortably James's best contribution to a Paul McCartney album. But the feel of the song also, for me, foreshadows the approach that might well be taken with Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. Heaven on a Sunday, lovely vibe, great side 2 opener, and it's my number 1 pick from Flaming Pie. Overall, I think Flaming Pie is somewhat slightly overrated by many, many people. Whilst there is a collection of great songs on the record, there are 2 stinkers. One in particular that I think really dragged the album down for me. And on my series of Reimagined, I'm not going to do Flaming Pie. There's other albums we've already talked about in this series that I will do at some point, like Flowers, In the Dirt. I will do my Off the Ground. I'm considering doing a Press to Play one. But I'm not going to do off Flaming Pie, because the answer for a reimagined Flaming Pie is drop Used to Be Bad and drop Really Love You. And you've got a 12-track album running at approximately 44 minutes. That would, for me, be top 5. It isn't top 5. In fact, it's outside top 10 because those 2 tracks so wreck the whole listening experience for me that I can't rate it higher, despite the fact it does contain great songwriting. Really, really great, masterful songwriting. This album is very much the product of a CD age. Now, CDs hold 70 to 80 minutes of music, and as the 90s wore on and the CD very much overtook vinyl, people made their albums longer. This made the listening experience, for me, and I suspect for quite a lot of other people, less rewarding. There is something in the need to rise from your seat and turn a record over after 22 to 23 minutes that I think moves oxygen around in your bloodstream to your brain, so that when you listen to the second half, it's a new experience. And the CDs just go straight through, even if they are only 45 minutes. But when they're 60 minutes, which is effectively 3 sides of vinyl, they become potentially a chore. It also means that material that shouldn't have been put out is made room for, because it can be. And so substandard tracks end up often buried in the middle of a record. Certainly is what happened here, in my opinion, with Really Love You and Used to Be Bad. So for me, the double vinyl brings the album back to life in a way that the CD doesn't. So that's my ranking and mini review of Flaming Pie. Let me know in the comments below what you think about it, or over on our Facebook page, which is Generation Mix Pock and Rock. I'll be back in a week with another video, but until then, please remember to like, subscribe and hit the bell, and I'll see you in a week.